Alright, so hello guys, it's been a while since I made another video, and I figured that I will show you guys how you can set up a web server. Preferably a web server that has all the features like bells and whistles that you might need in a production server, for example. And there's quite a few stuff you have to go about, but first I have to mention some things. So first off, I'll be using Debian as the base for this server. So the base for this server will be, let me actually turn off the second VM that I have running, it's not important. So the thing that I'll be using is Debian. I'll be using the net installation media for Debian. You just go over to the link into the description and you download either the AMD64 or i386 depending on which CPU you have. If you don't know, you can just Google which one it is and you'll be able to find it. I'll be using the AMD 64-bit version. Now I already have it. I opened this using my secondary keyboard. You can see I already have it downloaded over here. So that's what I'll be using. Let me just quickly check. Yep, everything seems to be fine. So this is the file that I downloaded. And I'll be using that to set it up in a VM. Now this is important. If you are setting this up in a VM, you can follow along with this next step. However, if you are setting this up on a real machine, there will be some things I will mention. So if you're setting this up on a real machine, you want to download Etcher, which is a really good flashing utility. And you want to install it, select your image, select the drive and flash it, just like they show you. It's really simple. Once it's done flashing, you want to go into your BIOS of that machine, after starting it up of course. And you want to change the boot order to the flash drive, or just boot straight to the flash drive, and you should be in the installation media. If you are, however, setting this up on a VM, just like I will be, I will show you some things I had to do in order to make it work. So I'll be using VirtualBox for this, and the way I set up my VM is, let me show what I have over here, first of all. So under general, I haven't changed really anything at all, so I just left it as it is. Over here in the system, I gave it 1 gig of RAM and I changed the order, so I have optical disk first and then the hard drive. And I disabled the floppy and moved it all the way down. Under CPU, I gave it 2 cores and set its execution to about 40%. You don't really need any faster than that. You can go actually a bit slower, but then it would be too slow and you might be frustrated, so I recommend setting it to 40%. If your CPU is really slow and you want to set it up, you might want to experiment with this a little, but then again, I'll be using just 40% because it's enough for me. In terms of acceleration, I leave it as it is. In terms of display, set the video memory to 8 megabytes. You don't really need any more than this. It will just be all text-based. Leave it as one monitor and you'll be fine. Don't set a remote display or any recording, leave it as it is. For storage, make sure you give it the 8 gig drive. You won't be needing any more than this. You will still have a lot of storage left over for any of your files and such. I set it to 8 because it's only an example. If you have an SSD of 120 gigs, that's fine. You can even use a 1 terabyte hard drive, it's up to you. Since we're here in the storage, you want to make sure that you actually add the image. So you want to click over here and choose a disk file. Go into the downloads folder and you should find the net installation ISO. Double click it to add it in and you should be done. Under audio, I have disabled the audio because there won't be any audio going through that, so disable it. Under network, this is actually important. Under network, if you're doing this in a VM, you want to make sure that it's enabled. Click over here and set it, I believe it was bridged adapter, yeah, bridged adapter. And under bridged adapter, you want to make sure you pick the one that you're using for your internet connection. Since I'm using a wireless card, a Wi-Fi card, I have this one, so it will work for me. Under advanced, make sure you set to allow it for all and leave everything as is. Make sure to set to allow for all and that the cable is connected. Under serial ports, you don't really need anything. Under USB, leave it as it is. No shared folders and no changes in the user interface. So with all of that, we should be good to go. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, it's all just like that. So I'm going to start up the server now. And it's started up on my secondary monitor, of course. Whoops. I had to toggle it this way. And let me open up the notes. So it will ask you for the startup disk. Select the net installation ISO and click start. Under the install that it shows you, make sure that you select the regular install, not the graphical. So regular install. Alright, so we landed on this screen over here. Actually, let me swap these around so you guys can see everything. So let me just swap them real quick. There we go. And there we go. So as you can see, I've just changed the order a bit so you guys can see everything that I'm doing. So after selecting the graphical install, you want to go ahead and select the English language. Let me just bring this all up over here so I can see everything. So bring up the English language and pick United States. For the key map, make sure that you use American English. This will load additional components, so it may take a little bit longer for you, depending on how quick your drive is. Again, this is inside of a VM, but the setup is pretty much the exact same. So it's going to actually retrieve all the things that it needs. So after it's done loading and detecting on your hardware, and it's now setting up my IP address, just let it take its time. And there we go, you should land on this screen, which will ask you for the host name. Now in the host name, you need to change this so you can identify your server. For example, I would like to use FOMA, so let's use FOMA for this. FOMA, well, since I already had one running like FOMA, let's say FOMA-TUT. Again, you may want to change this based on what you need. I'll be using FOMA-TUT for this. For the domain name, you can set this if you have a domain. Since I don't have a domain set or anything, I will not set this up. I will just leave it blank. So let's let it just load, and this is where the root password comes in. So the root password is pretty much the password that will let you do all the necessary things from the start. And it's a password that has to be secure enough that only you and the people that you know will be working on the server with you. So I will recommend that you set up a password that you and only the workers will remember. Since this is just a test server, I'm gonna give it the root password test. So TEST, as you can see, test. Then you have to repeat it to verify the password. Again, you can show it by pressing tab and then space to select an option. Click continue. Then for the full name of the user, you can change this based on what you need. You can give a special username for each user on your network that you want to let the server be accessed from. So since this is just a tutorial, I will set it to test. But again, you want to change this based on your requirements and how you want to set it up. Once I get my real server hardware, I will change this based on my preferences. For the username, leave it as it suggests to you, because it's simple to set it up like this. And then the password, if you're not sure if you're typing it correctly, just press tab and select show password in clear. Since this is a test server, I'm just gonna say test. The same goes for verifying the password. And it's loading. Now it wants to set up a time zone. Now the time zone, you want to set it according to your needs. I will select Eastern. Again, it takes a little while to detect everything. And there we go, it's loading additional components so we can continue with the install. Okay, it's setting up the partitioner, which is the next part. This is where we get to partition our drive. So if you want to set it up properly, in terms of partitioning everything, you want to make sure that you select guided and use the entire disk. Select the drive that you have in your system. One thing I would recommend before doing this, if you plan on using multiple drives in your system, make sure to unplug all the other drives and select the one that you want to set as the OS drive, maybe an SSD or something. just one drive in the system, so you can install the OS and set it all up. Then you can make tweaks and adjustments later. To make it as simple as possible, just use one drive like I have here. Now this is a fairly complicated partition. Now since this is a tutorial, I will use just the one partition, which is recommended for new users. But in the enterprise space, you may want to select separate partitions for your home, var, and TMP partitions. Again, it depends on which environment you are working in. I will highly recommend that you separate your home, var, and TMP partitions. But since this is just a tutorial and for my own home use, I will be using all files in one partition. Alright, then it's going to show you some sort of a, how it will set it up for you. So we have it to set it to format. The first partition will be our primary one, and it will be of the size 7.5 gigs. And then we have a logical one, which is the size of 1.1 gigs, and it's a swap partition. The 7.5 gig partition is our root partition. This is where our OS will go. The swap will be used as additional memory in case we're going to run out of it. If you are satisfied with this, make sure to finish partitioning and write changes to the disk. Then it will ask you again if you want to write these changes, so select yes instead of no. And it will attempt to do all these things now. And it's installing the base system. So during the install, it will actually ask you to configure the package manager by scanning the CD and DVD. Once it comes up, you will see what I mean. Alright, so it's about to finish up with the base installation, so I figured I might just set it up so that we can actually be right when it's about to happen. So it's finishing up the base installation. So yeah. Alright, there we go. So this is the part with configuring the package manager. So when it comes to configuring it, you just want to select no, because we do not want to scan it from the CD, so select no. Then it's gonna configure the package manager using the Debian archive mirror country. So you want to set the country to United States and select the archive mirror to deb.debian.org. And leave the proxy empty if you don't have one. I don't have one, so I'm gonna leave it empty. Alright, so we came up in the part with selecting and installing software. It tells us to wait, so we will wait. Alright, there we go, so it came up with the configuring the popularity contest. Here you want to select that no, you do not want to participate in the package usage survey. It will basically send data with how many and what packages you're using. I just set it to no because I don't want to participate in it. It's gonna still install it anyway, but it's not gonna connect it to anything. Alright, this is the part where we select our software. So since this will be just a server, you wanna untick the Debian desktop environment. And what you want to take on are print server, SSH server, and standard system utilities. The reason why I untick Debian desktop environment is basically you do not want any sort of graphical user interface things on your server, because it will basically make it slower to use, especially if you're trying to configure it. And that's also especially true since this server is pretty much a simple web server. Well, not as simple, but again, we do not want any of that overhead. We want to save as much processing power for our actual server, because we will need it. You will soon see why. It's actually also better to have it set up like this, since it will make it faster to configure everything. And make sure that you've taken the print server, SSH server, and standard system utilities. The reason I didn't take the web server on is it will skip a major configuration part in our setup, so I leave it unticked. But I leave the print server set up just in case I need to add a printer to this server in the future. So make sure that SSH server is ticked so you are able to SSH into it from your terminal or PuTTY on Windows, so you can configure stuff instead of having to go to the server itself. You can just SSH into it and make changes right there from the terminal. And standard system utilities, that should be pretty much self-explanatory. These are your nano, your text editor nano and such, so I recommend having these ticked as well. Press tab, hit continue with space, and we'll install everything. Alright, so we just finished the installation process. So we're going to wait until it comes up again. Alright, there we go. So it's going to install the grub bootloader, and this is where something important will come up. I'll mention it real quick. So this is the part where we're going to install our grub bootloader onto the hard disk. You want to make sure that you select yes, you want to install the grub bootloader to the master boot record. So click yes, and here you want to select your hard drive. Now this is important what I mentioned, you want to have only one hard drive in your system, because you do not want to screw this up. In case your hard drive dies in your server, you won't be able to boot your system anymore. So make sure you have only the system drive in your system. So there we go. And now we're going to wait until the installation completes. This should have been the last step, so we're just gonna give it some time. Alright, and it's finishing up the installation by setting up our users and passwords, so that's absolutely fine. It's disabling the net install cd from the sources list, that's also fine. So therefore removing the requirement of having it always plugged in into your system, which is actually important. It's setting up the clock, and there you go, the installation has been complete. So what you want to do is you want to select continue to finish it up, and it should just restart. There we go, it's requesting system reboot, and we've just rebooted, or at least it's trying to boot. And this, there we go, this is the window we want to be on. You can just let it boot automatically if you want to. So there we go. Again, it messes with the windows a bit, so just be patient with this. So wait until it shows up with the proper window sizing and stuff, and then resize it if you're doing this in a VM like I am. So, and there we go. As you can see, it asks us to log in, and what you want to do is you want to log in, obviously. So for me it was test. You want to use your own passwords and logins based on what you set up. For me it was test and password was test, and there we go, we're in. So right now you want to check if you have an IP. So to do that, you want to type in IP adder. Oops, adder, there we go. And you might notice that my IP is now something, yeah, there it is, 10.10.0.110. I want to mention, once this tutorial is done, I'm going to wipe this server so you guys will be able to connect to it just in case. And this is not my main workstation's IP anyway, so don't even bother trying to hack it, because it won't exist. You can also test if you do have internet connection. So to do that, you want to type in ping -c3 and then google.com. What this will do, it will ping google.com 3 times. As you can see, we are getting a response, which is fine. So what do we want to do next? Next we want to set up sudo for our user. So to do that, we're going to type in su to enter the root account and type in the password for our root account for the root user. So we're going to type in, for me it's test, you want to type in yours. And I'm in, and what I want to do is I want to do apt install sudo. What this will do is we'll install the package called sudo, and what sudo is used for is for elevating your privileges while installing certain applications or while changing system configuration files, which is what we will be using a lot. But that's not the whole story, there's actually one more thing we need to change. There we go, and what you want to do is you want to open up the sudoers file inside of the etc directory. To do that, you want to type in nano /etc/sudoers. And then what you want to do is you want to add yourself to the user privilege specification. And here you want to type in the username. For me, it's test. And then type it exactly as it is above. So it's all equals open parenthesis all, then the double dots again, then all closed parentheses space all. Now what I just did there is I added myself to the user privilege specification, and with that we should be able to run the sudo commands. Now what you want to do is you want to press Ctrl S to save it and Ctrl X to exit. And now we want to log out of the root user just by typing an exit, and we're back to our regular user. So what you want to do now is you want to do an update. This will update all the packages in our list. So we're going to do sudo apt update, and what should come up with is a window like this, but it says some basic information about, you know, power and stuff. And what you want to do is type in your root password, and it will update the packages list. This is important because we're going to install some pieces of software that you may want to update just in case. As you can see, it says that all the packages are up to date. So in my case I didn't have to, but it's always a good, you know, it's always good practice to do so. So pretty much what happened is I tried setting this up and the audio did not work, but now it's working. So pretty much what you do, install these two packages, and it's going to install both of them. I already had them downloaded before, so it's going to install them real quick. And next what you want to do is you want to run the MySQL secure connection as sudo. So type that in, and it's going to ask you for the root password. Now we're going to set it for none because we do not have a root password. So hit enter. Then it's going to ask us for setting the root password. So for setting the root password, you want to pretty much click yes or press Y so that we can set the root password. Type in the new password. I would recommend that you set the same one you used for setting up your root account on your server. For me it's test. There we go. And now it's going to ask if you want to remove anonymous users. You want to say yes, remove them. If you want to disallow root login remotely, we want to say yes. Then we want to say, then it asks us if we want to remove the test database and access to it. Yes, we want to remove that as well. Yeah, then it's going to ask us if we want to reload the privilege tables now. So in order to apply all the changes we made, obviously, so I want to say yeah. Oh crap! There we go. I didn't realize it. Let's go back over here. So we want to say yes, and there we go. It's all set up. It all works now. I'm happy that the audio freaking works. Okay, so after doing that, we need to launch MySQL as root. So to do that, we're gonna type in sudo MySQL -u for user, and then type in root, and then -p. This will let us enter the MySQL application of the database and stuff, so that we can make a new user, so that we can use it to log in into our phpMyAdmin server later on. So type in the password we've set for our user, and it should be in this window, which as you can see, it shows us welcome to the MariaDB monitor along with all this other stuff. So what you want to do now is you want to type in all caps grant all on, then star dot star to, then lowercase exactly how your name is, so test. It will be all in single quotes. Then say the @ symbol, then the single quote localhost, and the second single quote, and then in all caps identified by. This will set the password for our user, and we want to set again in single quotes test. You want to change test based on your preferences. For example, with this, we will create a user called test, and we will grant him all the permissions. It will be at our local host, so at this virtual machine or this server, and his password has been set to test. You want to set it differently based on what you want to set. After this, it will say query OK, 0 rows added, 0.001 seconds. So it worked. Next, we want to make sure that the changes have taken effect. So we need to run the following SQL statement. So it's flush privileges. You want to run this, and maybe I typed it in wrong. Oops, yeah, I did. I cannot type. Privileges, not privileges, privileges. There we go. And after this, if it says query OK, 0 is added, you want to type in \q to quit out of it. And it says bye, and that's it. So that's our MariaDB server, our database server pretty much set up. Next, we want to set up our web server. So for this, I'm going to pre-open my browser. I am using Brave as my main browser. So we're going to go back into our virtual machine. Oops, should have opened like that. There we go. And we're going to do the following. I'm going to install Apache 2. To do that, you want to do sudo apt install Apache 2. What this will do, it will install that software we need to set up our web server. And it's industry standard, so it's good for us that we have it installed in our system. Come on, finish it up already, and there we go. So what you want to do is we want to make sure that it starts up automatically once we reboot our system, or our server in that case. So what we're trying to do is want to say sudo systemctl enable Apache 2, and with that we've set it up so it can start up automatically. Next, we want to restart it, so we want to make sure that it refreshes all of its settings. So restart, and next we want to check if it's actually running. To make sure it's running, you want to just type in status. Once you see that it's all green and says that it's active, you want to go to your browser of choice. So again, I will choose Brave, and you want to type in the IP. Now to figure out the IP, actually, you want to press Ctrl+C if you end up with this state, and type in IP adder, and it will show you the IP. The IP you want to look for is under inet. So if you want to list it out, you can just grab inet, but I already told you which one I'm using. So I have this second card, and my IP is 10.10.0.110. So let's do 10.10.0.110. Once I do that, you'll notice I'm able to access my web server, which is fine. My IP isn't this IP. I have already a separate virtual machine with a server, and I was connecting to it just fine before. So this is on the server right now. So with that, we can continue. So next up is installing PHP 7.3 and then setting it up so it can communicate with everything. So what you're going to do is sudo apt install and then it's PHP 7.3 and lib Apache 2 mod PHP 7.3. Again, all of these commands will be in the tutorial. We want to install these, and I already download them, and the installation shouldn't take very long. So next up will be testing, make sure it actually works on our web server that we have PHP. PHP is actually useful for a lot of reasons. One of the most used examples is creating some sort of a login form or registration form on your website so that other people and other users can join your forums, for example. So you can set up a PHP login form, and people will type in their usernames and passwords. Then you save it into some sort of a database, and you can check if somebody logs in. So you can create also a login form, and you can make sure that it's actually working, that people are able to log in or even log out. So that's one of the reasons I'm even making this video. So anyway, so after it being installed, what you want to do is you want to open up you want to create a file called info.php, and what it will have is it will have a simple like command for PHP to execute, and it will generate an entire website with all the information about our PHP instance on our server. So to do so, you want to do sudo nano /var www html, and you want to create a file called info.php. Inside this file, you want to type it in as follows: the lower than sign, then the question mark, PHP, and under it type in PHP info open parenthesis close parenthesis and semicolon. Control S to save, Control X to exit. Now, what you want to do is you could call this right away. We could actually try it out right now. It should work right away. So what you want to do, you want to go to your web browser again if you haven't closed it. Type in the IP, say / and then say info.php. And boom, it'll load up our PHP instance on our server. You can see it's on Debian server. Build date is at which time it was built, this instance, Apache 2 handler. So it is working. It's on our web server now running. See that? So it has a remote address and everything, webmaster at localhost. So that's working. So yeah, we got everything running right now. So that's our PHP instance on our web server. So with PHP set up, we now have to get some sort of MySQL and MariaDB support into PHP. So what you can do, you can search for the PHP 7.3 package. PHP 7. I think it was 3, and what it will do, it will search for every single possible package you may want. If you wanna browse through these, you can do it simply by doing a pipe and then say vi followed by followed by a dash, and what it will do, it will read out everything. So pretty much we now have it open in Vim or VI, and we can scroll through all of this, you know, letting you know what sort of packages there are. So that's that. To exit, just forgot. There we go, we exited out of it. So that's just a little tidbit for you. So what you want to do is you want to install 2 packages, you know, from all the add-ons that we need. We only need 2 to make sure everything works properly. So what you can do is you want to use sudo apt install, and we're going to reuse the PHP 7.3 here, and we want to say dash MySQL, which is a package that will enable us to use MySQL database with our, or in our case, our MariaDB database with our PHP instance. So we want to do that, and then we want to type in php-peer. It's a package that is suggested a lot on various tutorials. Just install it just in case you may need it in the future. Alright, and with that, you wanna restart the Apache 2 service so that we can restart our web server that way. So sudo systemctl Apache Apache 2 and restart. Restart Apache 2. Whoops. Restart Apache 2. There we go, I should fix that. Restart Apache 2, there we go. And with that, we can check if everything's working just like it should. So we can open up our Brave browser again, refresh the page. You might notice it has extended. We now have a few more files in here. So that's one of the changes with which you can tell if it has changed or not. We have a few more files here, therefore it's working. So let's switch back to our server. and let's continue working. So next up is the phpMyAdmin. So it's pretty much a web interface through which you can manage your databases, and that's why we're installing it. It will make it much easier to change and make changes instead of having to do it through the command line. It's a web interface, so it's kind of like a web application, if you will. So to do that, we need to first get the latest version of phpMyAdmin, which as of recording this video is on version 5.02. To do this, we'll type in this really long command, so wget https followed by the double dots and 2 forward slashes, and then type in files dot phpMyAdmin.net forward slash phpMyAdmin forward slash 5.0.2 forward slash phpMyAdmin dash 5.0.2 dash all dash languages.zip. And what this will do, it will download the phpMyAdmin version 5.0.2 all languages package. What you want to do is you want to unzip it into your OPT directory. The OPT directory is pretty much used to store applications that you want to launch from a command line, therefore making it easier for us to launch applications you want to install manually this way. So what you want to do is you want to do sudo unzip followed by the name, just press tab, it should pop up, then do -d for directory and do /opt. Once you do that, it will take a little bit of time to install everything. It looks scary, don't worry, it's just extracting things. Just be patient. There we go, it's already done. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the file is in there, so do ls-lh do /opt. You'll notice we have a phpMyAdmin-502-all-languages, but to be frank with you, it's not really user-friendly, so what we're gonna do is we're going to rename it. So to rename it, you do sudo mv-v followed by /opt phpMyAdmin all languages. And then what you want to do is do the same thing pretty much, opt phpMyAdmin all languages, but remove it up to the point where it says phpMyAdmin. As you can see, it says renamed, and if we run the ls command again, it's renamed to phpMyAdmin. Now we have to change the owner and the group of the directory to the group called www-data. Let me first do it and then explain what it is. So we want to do it by doing sudo change own -r for recursive, -f for forcing, followed by f for forcing, and v for verbose, and say www and press tab, it will fill it out, and the 2 double dots again, www-data, and then follow it by opt phpMyAdmin, just like that. So what have we done now? We've changed the ownership to the of the phpMyAdmin folder to www-data. The user is pretty much one of the reasons is for security. For example, it will make the files not world writable, therefore restricting it to the owners of the files itself. So only the owners of the files will be able to make changes to those files. So it's pretty much another layer of security basically, and it also make it so that the web server has to be run under the specific user, so the user pretty much has to exist. So now we have to configure it so that we can actually access it. So we need to configure Apache, which is our web server, to communicate with phpMyAdmin. To do that, we need to open up a port called 9000. We will use the port 9000 because it's a free port, it's not used by any sort of application on our server as of now, so we will use that instead. So the way you want to do this, you want to create a configuration file for phpMyAdmin that will let us pretty much tell it, hey, this file is used for phpMyAdmin, let me access it from my web server. So to do that, I'm going to type in sudo nano /etc apache2 /available, and then you want to create a file called phpMyAdmin.conf phpMyAdmin.conf. You want to make sure that you type that in correctly. phpMyAdmin.conf. Yep, seems okay. And then you want to type in all of these methods right here. So what you want to do is you want to type in the lower than sign, virtual host, then enter the star sign, the double dots, and then say 9000. So it knows to use the port 9000, and end off with the greater than sign. Then say server admin is test at local host. With this, we're telling it that the admin of our server is the user called test at our local host. You want to change the user test to your user based on what you're doing. Next, we want to say where our document is stored, which is done by using the document root variable. So do document root and then do /opt phpMyAdmin. This has to be typed in exactly as the folder is titled. Next, you want to tell it what is inside of the directory and what it can index and such. So this is pretty much another layer of security. You want to say directory /opt phpMyAdmin. This has to be written out as it exactly is, so it's case sensitive, you have to remember that. Oops. And what you want to do is you want to type in options and indexes and follow symlinks. What we did with this is we told it to pretty much follow all the symbolic links that are tied to that application specifically, which is important because if you don't do this, it will not work properly. It may work, but it will end up being messed up somewhat, so I recommend that you do it like this. Next is allow override. With this, we're telling it to pretty much not allow, none. With this, we're pretty much telling it don't allow anyone else to overwrite any of our files on our server. Next, we're telling it require all granted. So with this, we're pretty much telling it make sure that the user that logs in has the granted permissions, which we did with our configuration of the database at the beginning. We granted the user all the permissions he needs in order to be able to access it. Next, you wanna end off the directory section. So to end it off, you wanna do the smaller than sign /directory, then the greater than sign, and then you want to set up the error logs. So the way you want to do this is error log, then space, $, and then these squiggly brackets, and inside of here we want to say in uppercase Apache _log_dir. With this, we're telling it to use the directory for the log files for Apache. Instead of writing it out manually, it will just take the system variable as its answer and put it in for us. Then do a /error _ phpMyAdmin.log. And we want to create a custom log. So custom log, and it will follow pretty much the same principle. So $sign, the squiggly brackets, Apache underscore log underscore there, then do /, and this time it will be access underscore phpMyAdmin .log, and then say combined. With the combined tag, we're telling it to combine both the error log and the custom log. And then you want to end off the virtual host, so smaller than sign / virtual host, then greater than sign, and that's it. Then you want to press Ctrl S and Ctrl X. That's how the file is supposed to look. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that the Apache web server can listen to the port 9000. So again, you want to change this based on your requirements. I am using the port 9000 for this. So to do that, we want to open up a file called ports.conf inside of the Apache 2 configuration folder. To do so, type in sudo nano /etc Apache 2 ports.conf, and what you want to do is you want to add under here, under the listen 80, you want to type in listen 9000. Not 90,000, 9,000, there we go. I actually, when I done this the first time, I typed in 90,000 instead of 9,000 and it did not work. Again, Ctrl S to save, Ctrl X to exit. Now what you want to do is you want to actually make sure that the phpMyAdmin site is, accessible within our web server. So what you want to do is you want to make it pretty much accessible. You want to enable the site essentially. So you want to use a package called a2 insite. So do sudo a2 en, press tab, doesn't do anything. Then sen2 site, just like that, and say phpMyAdmin.conf, hit enter, and it says enabling site phpMyAdmin. To activate the new configuration, you need to run systemctl reload Apache 2. Do so with sudo privileges, so sudo systemctl reload Apache 2 without the service thing. Oops, I accidentally put in that. There we go, and it should now be working. In order for you to access the phpMyAdmin login page, all you have to do is go to your web browser, go to the regular IP, click here, then do the double dots thing so that we can specify a port, and change the port to 9000. Once you do so, you will notice we are on the phpMyAdmin login page, and we can test it out. So let's type in our username, and let's type in our password, and we're in. We're on our server. You can see localhost via Unix socket, MariaDB. SSL has not been used. You wanna change that, but end user is test at localhost. It's running under Apache 2.4.38 under Debian, and it's using a PHP extension called MySQLi, and PHP version is 7.3.19-1 and something. So pretty much it's working. We have access to it. We can log out if we want to, but again, that's based on what we want to do. So anywho, so with that done, my browser just crashed. That's coolio. So with that, what else is there to do? Well, something else we can do is, if you decided to work it, yes, you have. Good. So what you want to do is we want to now set up our FTP server. Now, a FTP server is and my webcam just decided to die. Cool. What else will die? Yep, seems like my camera just died. Okay. Let me fix that. There we go. Managed to fix it. Albeit a bit of a boring solution, but it works. So anyhow, so as you can see, everything works now. So now we're going to configure our FTP server. So our FTP server is pretty much a server that will let us access various kinds of files over the network if we set it up correctly. So it's pretty much used on a NAS, if you will, and it's a easier method of setting up a NAS, in fact. So the way you want to do this is really simple. You want to install the VSFTPD package. So you want to do, let me actually clear this out. Let's do sudo apt install VSFTPD. It will grab the package and install it for us. And come on, load up. There we go. So next we can check if it's actually running. So we can do sudo systemctl status vsftpd without the service, but you can leave it in if you want to. As you can see, it's running. That's fine. Next, we want to make sure that it actually starts up automatically. So instead of vsftpd status, we're going to say enable. With this, it will create a symbolic link to run it automatically for us. Next, we have to configure the server. So to do so, you want to do sudo. You want to first make a backup of our file just in case something goes wrong. So sudo cp-r/etc vsftpdconf, then do /etc vsftpdconf and add a .back for backup. Oops, back. There we go. And now you want to open it, so do sudo nano /etc vsftp.conf, and it will open up this crazy looking file. So here are the things you want to change. Here's the listen thing. You want to change that to yes, all uppercase. Then there's the listen to IPv6. I will set this to not listen to IPv6 just by commenting it out. Next, go to leave anonymous enable if you wanna, I have it actually later down the line. Anonymous enable is if you want to pretty much I have it set to no because I don't want anonymous users to enter my file server, obviously. So I've set it to no because we do not want any randos or any weirdos joining or accessing our file server, since they do not have permissions to do so. So I've set it to no. Make sure that you set the local to be enabled to yes, so that only the local users can log into that server. Make sure to allow the writing to this server so you can actually create files on it. So write enable equal to yes. What else? You can ignore pretty much all of this because you do not need to set any of this. I'm going to leave these as they are, but here under connect from port 20, I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to add here a special one, and it will be listen_port equal 21. What I did right now is I told the web server, or the FTP server rather, to listen just to the port 21. So instead of port 20, it's going to use port 21. Next thing you want to do is you want to make it so that only the users from a certain file can access that file server. So I'll scroll down, and it should be, there we go, it's under you may specify explicit list of local users to chroot. So we want to uncomment the chroot local user equal to yes, and chroot list enable yes, and then chroot list file should be etc vsftpd.chroot_list. And what you want to do after all of this has been set, hit Ctrl S and then Ctrl X, and then we want to create a file under the same name. So what you want to do is you want to create a file called vsftpd under the etc directory .chroot list, chroot_list, there we go. And in here you want to type in the user you want to access the server. So again, it will change for your configuration. For me, it will be test. Okay. So you can also set the range of ports, but we're not gonna bother with that. So after that, we're going to save it and hit exit. And now you want to restart the vsftpd server. So you do this by doing sudo systemctl restart vsftpd, hit enter. And what you want to do is, oh yeah, that's that. Yeah, we're still recording, good, I wasn't sure. And what you want to do now is you want to check the status. So we can change this command really easily to status, and it says that it's active, so the FTP server is running. Again, you can check this multiple ways. I'm going to show you both ways. So we can open up our web browser, and we can actually regain that IP we had, but change the tag before it to FTP. So you want to do the dot and /, and we should, if I typed it in correctly, it's asking me to log in. So you can type in test followed by test, and there we go, we're inside of our directory. So it's asking me for the password any single time I log in, which is good. So now it's working, we have access to it through our web browser, but it's not the only way we can check. We can actually check using a program called FileZilla. So what we can do is you can change the host to 10.10.0.110. So based on your IP, username is test, password is test, and port is 21 in my case. I hit enter, it tells me it doesn't support FTP over TSL, that's fine, hit OK, and we're inside and we have the exact same file as we had in our web browser over here. So it's working, we have access from both sides, which is good. And the final step is to actually set up monitoring on our server, and it's actually really easy to do. I'll use a really nice piece of software called Glances to do this. So what you want to do is you want to type in sudo. Let me actually clear this out. And the way you want to do this is you want to type in sudo apt install Glances. What this package is, it's pretty much a remote system. What did I do? It's a remote system monitoring utility. So you can use this either in web mode or in a server mode, or a client mode. So to explain each and every mode, we have the server mode, which we'll be using on our server, which will create an instance of Glances on our server, and it can be accessed using the web mode and client mode. However, we can do it the other way around. We can actually run the web server instance right away by doing Glances-v. I'll add a small thing in there so we can still keep on typing things if necessary. I will show you once it finishes installing. Alright, there we go, it just finished installing. So I'm going to now run Glances in the web mode. I'm going to show you both ways. The way you do it, you type in Glances, then do -w, and if you run it like this, it will work, but you won't have access to anything you do. So in order to remedy this, we're going to add another thing to it. So we're going to run Glances with the -w flag, but add in the ampersand. Where is it on my keyboard? There it is. Followed by an exclamation point. With this, we will actually execute Glances as a separate process, therefore letting us back into the prompt letting us execute various other commands if we need to. So if we do that, you might notice we have a process that has been set up, and it has a process number, which is in my case 13658. So now we can either run glances from here and check, but there is another way, and the reason why I set it up this way is you can monitor it from your web browser. So I'm going to open up my web browser again, and you want to type in your server IP. So it will be 110, but the port will be, what will the port be? Well, the port is 61208. So if I run this, you'll notice it open up this scary thing, and it's pretty much a you can see it's formatted, which is our web server. In fact, if you look back in here, it is indeed our server that's running right now, and we have a nice overview of all the metrics. For example, how much CPU usage we have, how much RAM is being used, how much stuff we have, how many cores we have, how the load was in the past 15, 5 and 1 minute, for how long it's been running, and how our disks are separated, and how our file system is separated. So this is our disk IO actually, and this is how our file system is separated. We have just one file system, so that's absolutely fine. And here we can see all the processes with how much time they were running for, how much CPU and how much RAM. You can actually change their order based on how much RAM or how much CPU they're using. For example, you may notice that MySQL is currently taking quite a bit of our memory, but also glances right now, and Apache 2 for our web server, which is what we set up. And here is the user, which is our www-data, which is set up. And with this, that's pretty much all you have to know. This is our entire web server set up. It's running pretty much flawlessly. You can open up each and every page that we have created using our web server. Therefore showing you how you can set up basically a fairly secure and still quite accessible web server. So let me just do it manually, real time, so you know that there's no editing involved. There was the FTP thing, so we can do that. You know, show you all of this that has been going on. You can see it asks me, so we can do test and test. And we should be in. There we go, we are in. We can see the zip file. You can use this to download files from your network, so that's really cool. I can open up FileZilla to show you that you can actually access it even from there. So by typing in the IP, then the username, and then the password, port 21, hit enter. Hit OK. You can see we got the exact same file as we had over here, so it's working properly. We can monitor it using our web browser. We can do all sorts of things we want to it. We can change the default landing page to make it accessible to all the other files. You can check the files on our FTP server, and that's pretty much the entire gist of things. This is how I have been trying to come up with a way to show you guys how you can set up your own web server. Bear in mind this was running from a VM, from a virtual machine. So you can set it up the exact same way on a physical box and it will work just fine. So you pretty much know now how I will configure my servers from now on. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will catch all of you guys in hopefully the next video.